In 2018, Prada faced backlash for a product that crossed cultural boundaries in the worst way.
Prada faces accusations of being racially backward.
Racism has no place in New York City.
It seems so off the mark for like a brand or a company that is around the world and should be at the forefront of social equalities.
The question is, who the hell approved this?
New York City, this is unacceptable.
But before we dive into that shocking scandal, let's examine the foundation of this luxury brand. Labor issues, environmental concerns, even sketchy material sourcing. There's more than meets the eye when it comes to Prada. Stick around as we uncover the controversy that forced Prada to apologize publicly. How much do we actually know about the people making Prada's high-end products? Behind the glossy advertisements and red carpet endorsements, the inner workings of Prada's supply chain remain, for the most part, a mystery. The company has been repeatedly criticized for its lack of transparency in this area, a glaring omission for a brand of its size and influence. Unlike other fashion giants that openly publish details about their suppliers and labor policies, Prada has chosen to keep these details under wraps. This secrecy raises important questions about the conditions in which Prada's products are made, not just for the workers, but for the brand's reputation as well. For instance, Prada does not release any reports detailing whether it upholds basic principles like gender equality, freedom of association, or protections against forced labor in its supply chain. This might sound like a technicality, but the implications are enormous. Take regions like Xinjiang in China, where forced labor has become a global issue tied to the production of cotton and textiles. While Prada hasn't been directly linked to this controversy, its silence and lack of public accountability make it impossible to rule out such risks entirely. It's the equivalent of refusing to answer one of the biggest ethical questions facing the industry today. And as the saying goes, silence can speak volumes. What makes Prada stand out in this context is how out of step it seems with the current trends of transparency. Some competitors like Patagonia or Stella McCartney have made a point of detailing their supply chains, sharing their sourcing policies, and publicly verifying worker protections across the board. These efforts may not solve every issue overnight, but they set a clear expectation for what ethical practices can look like in the fashion industry. Prada, on the other hand, offers little to no reassurance. Curious consumers looking for evidence that the company pays a living wage, for instance, won't find much. In fact, there's no documented proof that Prada makes this commitment at any level. Let's break this down. A living wage isn't the same as a minimum wage. It's what workers need to meet their basic needs like housing, food, and healthcare. Crucial factors for people crafting luxury products sold for thousands of dollars. If a multi-billion-dollar brand like Prada can't guarantee that its workers are being paid fairly, then what does luxury really mean? It's hard to celebrate exclusivity when the reality behind it is uncertain, at best. Now, to be fair, Prada is not the only major brand to struggle with these issues, but the lack of any visible attempt to address them stands out. In fact, the ethical fashion watchdog Good On You has given Prada a labor rating of not good enough. This might not be shocking if we were talking about a budget fast fashion brand, but for Prada, a name synonymous with high-end quality, it's a damaging label. The rating reflects a company that still has a long way to go when it comes to protecting its workers and creating an accountable supply chain. So, this raises a difficult question. Has Prada's pursuit of exclusivity come at the expense of fairness? Its labor practices aren't just a footnote. They're a foundational part of how the brand operates. Luxury doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's always someone behind every seam, every cut, every accessory that Prada proudly showcases. And until the company is more transparent about how and where its goods are made, we're left with more questions than answers. But there's another side to this story, one that ties the brand's production processes to even larger issues, like its impact on the environment. Prada might prefer to stay quiet about its labor practices, but what about the resources and materials it uses to maintain its glossy image? That too comes with a cost, and it's a bigger one than just the price tag on a handbag. What does Prada's obsession with luxury mean for the planet? Well, according to the ethical fashion organization, Good On You, not much good. The brand's environmental rating is a blunt not good enough, reflecting serious areas of concern in how Prada manages its ecological footprint. This rating isn't arbitrary, it evaluates Prada's use of materials, water waste, pollution reduction strategies, and chemical use across its supply chains. For a brand with such global influence, it paints a picture of disappointing progress when it comes to sustainability. One major issue driving this low score is Prada's reliance on leather. Leather might scream luxury to high-end shoppers, but the production process tells a much darker story. Tanning leather creates enormous amounts of water waste and involves the use of toxic chemicals that often find their way into surrounding ecosystems. We're not just talking about a few polluted rivers here. The leather industry as a whole contributes heavily to environmental degradation. Prada claims to source some of its leather from tanneries certified by the Leather Working Group, but it hasn't disclosed detailed evidence to back this up, leaving consumers in the dark about the true cost of those designer handbags and loafers. When we expand the view beyond leather, things don't get much better. There's no indication that Prada has implemented meaningful efforts to cut down on textile or water waste in their manufacturing. Take Stella McCartney, for example, a brand that's embraced recycled materials and waste reduction strategies across its collections.
My parents were both pioneers. The values that my mum and dad raised us with were ones of commitment to never use leather, never eat animals, to live in harmony with our fellow creatures and Mother Earth. It was rebellious and revolutionary. It kind of still is. I set my team the task of creating a luxury bag with all the qualities and durability of leather, but without harming a single creature. When it came to naming the bag, I looked to one of my favorite animals, the falabella. It changed fashion history.
Prada has introduced the Re-Nylon initiative, a step forward no doubt, but this recycled fabric is mostly limited to accessories like bags or backpacks. Compared to brands that embed sustainability throughout their designs, Prada's efforts look more like a side project than a long-term commitment. But what exactly is Re-Nylon? Prada partnered with Aquafil to create a material made entirely from recycled waste, including old fishing nets and fabric scraps. While this sounds promising on the surface, its limited rollout across product lines keeps it from making a significant dent in Prada's overall environmental impact. It also sidesteps bigger concerns tied to the brand's enduring reliance on less sustainable materials, such as virgin leather and exotic animal skins. Without a systemic overhaul, initiatives like Re-Nylon are more symbolic than transformative. Imagine trying to clean up an oil spill with a single sponge. It's nowhere near enough to offset the larger problem. Prada is also a part of the G7 Fashion Pact, an industry coalition aimed at tackling climate change and promoting sustainability. Sounds forward-thinking, right? Sure, but membership in these initiatives only means so much without clear, measurable changes. Prada has set targets to reduce its carbon emissions in both its operations and supply chain, but there's scant evidence to show it's making progress. On top of that, there are no known projects addressing hazardous chemicals in the company's production processes. If Prada is serious about reducing its harm to the planet, it's clearly not moving fast enough to prove it. So, where does this leave Prada? The brand occasionally throws around phrases like sustainability and reduction, but these gestures fall short compared to the bold moves other companies have made. It's the classic story in luxury fashion: immense resources but limited action. And while Prada's decision to go fur-free might seem like a shift toward ethical practices, it doesn't scratch the surface of its ongoing contributions to environmental and animal welfare issues. From the water wasted in leather production to a lack of comprehensive sustainability and product design, Prada's not good enough rating speaks to a pattern of prioritizing image over impact. This raises a vital question: is Prada's environmental strategy genuine, or is it just good PR? Initiatives like Re-Nylon are worth acknowledging, but when the broader picture reveals minimal progress and unaddressed issues, it suggests that sustainability is less a priority and more of a buzzword. And if its approach to environmental responsibility feels inconsistent, just wait until we examine how Prada handles animal welfare. Prada made headlines in September 2020 with its announcement to go fur-free. It was presented as a bold step forward, a move aligned with shifting consumer attitudes toward animal welfare. The brand even worked with organizations like the Fur-Free Alliance to solidify the new policy. Miuccia Prada herself emphasized this as a chance to explore innovative materials while catering to ethical demand. On the surface, it felt like a moment worth celebrating, a luxury brand responding to the call for more humane practices. But, looking beyond the headlines, the reality is far more complicated. While Prada's decision to eliminate fur was seen as progress, it's far from the end of the story. The company still relies heavily on animal-derived materials like leather, wool, exotic animal skins, and angora, materials that come with significant ethical and environmental consequences. These aren't mere byproducts, they're core components of Prada's designs. And this creates a glaring contradiction between the brand's fur-free message and its ongoing dependence on practices that involve animal suffering. Unsurprisingly, Prada has earned a very poor rating for animal welfare from Good On You. And this rating isn't just based on what the brand does, but also on what it refuses to address. For example, while Prada's fur-free policy garnered praise, the company continues to use exotic skins sourced from animals like crocodiles, snakes, and ostriches. These materials raise serious concerns about supply chain ethics, ranging from inhumane farming practices to unsustainable harvesting methods. PETA welcomed Prada's fur-free decision, but also called on the company to stop using these exotic skins, pointing out that the brand has made no public commitments to improving transparency or oversight in this area. The contradictions don't stop there. While some of Prada's down products are traced under the Responsible Down standard, this only accounts for part of their supply. The company has yet to implement a broader animal welfare policy, meaning the treatment of animals across its other sourcing chains isn't guaranteed to meet even basic ethical standards. And when you consider that Prada openly sells leather, angora, and shearling products, the inconsistency in their messaging becomes even more obvious. The fur-free announcement may have represented a step in the right direction, but it's clear that the journey toward comprehensive animal welfare is far from over. Here's where it gets more troubling. Announcements like these tend to work well for PR. They create the perception of change without forcing Prada to address the deeper issues. By banning fur, a material that was already falling out of favor in the luxury market, the company positioned itself on the right side of the ethics conversation without making more significant sacrifices. It's important to note that Prada is still selling existing fur products left in its inventory, further showing how limited this decision really was in scope. The move may have been about branding as much as, if not more than, actual improvement. What's interesting is how this pattern reflects the broader strategy of luxury brands. Surface-level changes like banning fur often deflect attention from larger, more challenging problems. Designers can claim progress while continuing to use materials tied to animal cruelty and environmental degradation. In Prada's case, leather and exotic skins remain deeply entrenched in the brand's identity. So while it's easy to applaud the fur-free announcement, it raises the question, is Prada genuinely evolving, or just doing the bare minimum to meet consumer expectations? Without comprehensive policies that cover all animal-derived materials, these efforts feel incomplete. The lack of transparency further underscores the problem. Prada has avoided sharing detailed information about where and how it sources its materials, leaving customers to trust a brand that's given little reason to earn that trust. And when a company's reputation rests on luxury and exclusivity, these ethical blind spots are hard to ignore. All of this brings us to a deeper point about Prada's public image. Has the brand built its reputation on superficial changes rather than meaningful commitments? The fur-free policy may look good on paper, but it does little to address the ongoing use of materials that raise the same ethical concerns. It's difficult to see this as anything more than a calculated move to protect the brand's name without jeopardizing its bottom line. But Prada's messaging hasn't just created controversy in its treatment of animals. In late 2018, Prada faced a major backlash over its Pradamalia line of merchandise. The collection included monkey-like figurines with exaggerated black faces, which many saw as evoking racist blackface caricatures. The controversy gained traction after civil rights attorney Chinyere Eze posted images of the products online, leading to immediate accusations of racism. Prada recalled the Pradamalia line and apologized via Twitter, but the damage to its reputation had already been done.
Now, earlier this week, a lawyer who was just walking by this Prada retail display behind me snapped a few photos of this storefront, and the social media post that she made calling for the store's boycott went viral. After a social media backlash, the more than 100-year-old Italian label pulling products that some said resembled blackface. including wallets, earrings, and $550 keychains depicting a monkey with bright red lips.
This incident highlighted the risks luxury brands face when they overlook cultural awareness and diversity in their product design. Do you think brands have learned from controversies like this, or are these just surface-level changes? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you found this investigation eye-opening, like and subscribe for more deep dives into the business behind big brands.